when it comes to mental health, our picture of God's involvement is he fixed it. Right? That was the message forever. Pray, read your Bible, do these things, and God will fix it.
Right.
Instead of the message being God's presence and power in the middle of it.
Yeah.
God promises he'll be with us. And there's not a whole lot else that he promises other than the things that come with his presence. Strength, peace. Those are the things that he promises. Like, if you give me all of your cares and concern, I will give you peace that passes all understanding. Sometimes I don't understand why it's so unique for leaders to share from that vulnerability. It seems like, man, this is how it's supposed to be.
It's like emptying the cross of its power when we don't want to sit in our weakness. And so even when we're when we're hiding it, or when we have to have it together, we're not showing people the power of weakness and Christ being with us. And then we're giving them a faith that doesn't have any suffering in it.
That to me is the message that I am desperately trying to get out. This difference between healing and freedom.
All right. Well, welcome to the Seacoast podcast, everyone. We're so psyched to have Toby Slough. Is Slough, right?
That's it.
Tell me some of the mispronunciations you've gotten in the past. The worst one that I've ever gotten for Svendsen is Svendsen.
Yeah.
It came in the mail. And I was like, I don't even know what to do with this.
Yeah, Slough's a lot. People say
Have you ever gotten
slough. Slough. My favorite is Slough. I begged my wife to name my son Cole. I thought it would be awesome. And she was like, we're not doing that. They'll make fun of him. I said, sweetheart, your name was Robinson. You don't understand. They're going to make fun of him, whatever his first name is.
I just thought of a family-owned country barbecue restaurant. We've got the pork. We got the Toby Slough right here. It's a special recipe made by Grandma, Toby Slough. All right. So real life scenario that played out last night and this morning. And I went back and forth with whether or not to share this. And I was like, no, I got this is great conversation because I'm so curious what you guys think. So it was almost a disaster this morning with this interview. So listen to what happened. Keenan reaches out to me. So for listeners' sake, Keenan manages a lot at this church and managed your travels and just while you were here in town. And so she reached out to me weeks ago, said, Toby Slough is in town and we would love to have him in the podcast studio. He's cool with it. Do you think you can make that happen? And I said, yeah, I don't see any problem. Well, there was at least one or two other situations that came in the conversation in me and Keenan's thread, in addition to to talking about you. And so we were talking about other stuff. Well, Sunday when you came in to teach, I was like, I thought that Toby was coming in for the podcast. So I went to my teams. And how the messages were laid out, I saw Keenan's message. I saw my response saying, yeah, for sure we could work it out. And I never saw her answer. So I thought, I guess it just wouldn't work out. I got a text from Caitlin. So basically, I'm not coming in. I just didn't think anything amounted. And so Caitlin texts me and says, so Caitlin runs the studio. She said, Keenan said something about Toby coming into podcast. I don't know anything about it. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I checked the teams and then I see how I missed the message. So Sunday, I did the right thing. I checked. I didn't see it. So it would have been a complete blunder. Not even irresponsibility on my part, really, because I even checked it. It just would have been a complete mistake. But how would you have handled that being on the other end? Because I asked Keenan behind the scenes, I said, did they book their flights according to this podcast? She said yes. And so, and Lynne, I want to know how you would feel being on my side of this, making a mistake. So imagine being at your house, but you're about 30 minutes away and you're like, hey, Toby's here to podcast. Where are you? Keenan's thinking, of course you're here. We talked about this on Teams. It would have leveled me. Now, I would have handled it better than I would have 5 years ago, but it would have been bad. As far as, I don't mean fall into a deep, dark depression. It would have been a bad day. I would have feel like I really dropped the ball. I made Keenan look bad, maybe I inconvenience you. It would have made me feel bad. So I'm curious how you would have felt if you were in my shoes, and then how you would have felt if you were in Toby's shoes, showing up somewhere that you based all your traveling around, and somebody dropped the ball. Because bottom line is, you don't know the intricacies of the mistake that I made, and that it was really with good intentions, and I tried to do the best thing.
So this is a hard question, because it's, am I in your shoes as you, or your shoes as me?
You.
Because as me, I'm administratively minded.
Yeah.
Like, that is a gift that
So
I
it
have.
wouldn't have happened.
And so, like, for me, everything's a calendar invite. And so if I'm having a conversation with someone and we solidify it, it's a calendar invite.
But I didn't see the solidification.
Right. But if we didn't, then I would have said, hey, if we're talking about something. So if you and I are planning something and you never send me a calendar invite, like I do with the podcast, I'll say, hey, I'm holding my calendar, but I'm going to release it because I haven't gotten a calendar invite. And so typically when I'm having a conversation, I hold things on my calendar and I put hold in all caps until I get the final. And if I don't get the final, I release it and then I tell them. So as me, that world, scheduling is a little bit different, and I've been an executive assistant for,
So if you lose your Jesus streak perfection of administration,
it's not perfection, but it's just a different wiring. My systems are different than
so
yours.
I would imagine this would be worse for you.
It probably would be. Yeah. It probably would be.
But you are all, you're someone who I know really wants to grow mentally as a person in life. Like we both share that value. We want to grow. How would you have rebounded? Like, would you have let it bother your whole day, or would you have been able to make a mental adjustment and be like, hey, this kind of stuff happens. If Toby doesn't understand, it's not my fault. Like, I can't do anything about it now. I can't control how he responds. I've got to move on with my life and not let it ruin my day. I
think I would have been off for the rest of the day. But then my gut instinct would have been like, okay, what am I going to do next time to make sure it doesn't happen? So I'm always like, the administrative side of me is like, okay, what did I do wrong? And how can I add a process or add a step to make sure it doesn't?
All right, what if you were in his shoes and you show up somewhere?
I think it would be different.
Yeah.
And I think, and even though, like when you say worse, because of my wiring, we can have a tendency to be like this, that we give ourselves more grace than we give other people.
Yeah.
And so when I am a calendar person. Last night before I went to bed, I looked at my week, what's going on. So if that happens on the other side, then I'm like, why didn't you check your schedule? Why didn't you double check? Why didn't you send so like I think on the other side, I would have to struggle with giving the same grace to other people that I give to myself.
Interesting.
See, I'm actually completely the opposite. I would give more grace to others than I give to myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is a part of the mental health journey, right? I had to decide, I'm going to answer your question. Yeah. And I hesitate because it makes me sound holier than I really am. But it happened here in Charleston.
Yeah.
Is when I started traveling, when we launched Goby, and I mean, we have been traveling, I think last year we were on the road 41 weekends.
Wow.
Was a lot. And I was traveling by myself at first, and flights were never working, right? And I was getting, upset at the airline. Why don't you have a crew here? All of the things. And one day I looked at my wife when I got home and said, you know what? If there's a delay or if something doesn't work out, man, I'm just going to believe that God is orchestrating a conversation for me to have with somebody that I wouldn't have gotten to have if I would have left on time. Mm-hmm. That he's in this thing.
Yeah.
And really, it was for my mental health, but it was here in Charleston, and the entire airport was shut down. I had to be somewhere else. And you could feel the tension rising. Mm-hmm. In this, you get to the end of that terminal where everybody's going out the same place and more coming in. And I don't know, man, this crazy peace I had that, man, it's going to happen when it happens. Mm-hmm. I ended up having a conversation in that little lounge with a girl who was struggling with her mental health, that I felt like the whole thing was orchestrated for that conversation. And so honestly, I'm not always here, but now I'm at a place that if you wouldn't have shown up and we weren't doing this, I would have gone, man, my wife and I spent Memorial Day in Charleston with people we love and care about, hanging out. And somewhere I know there would have been something that would have happened in the time we were supposed to be doing this. It's just God has been so faithful to me.
Yeah.
And again, it makes me sound like I'm this patient, holy man that I'm not.
Yeah.
But that's really how I'm choosing to look at life. And really what we do at Goby is all about training ourselves, mental fitness. We talk about physical fitness. I talk about mental fitness. Like, I'm going to find some things that, as it fits my unique personality and the way God wired me, that is going to put me in a best position to be in the best place I could be in.
Yeah.
So like, I'd have given you a lot more grace. If it would have been me that blew it, I would be devastated.
Yeah. That's how I am, and I feel like in my case, it's probably. Again, just for me personally, it's probably less growth and just more genetics, because I look at my dad and then I look at his mom, and they are the most laid back, long fuse, and I learning a little bit about the Enneagram and Enneagram 9 being a peacemaker. It's funny, like when someone inconveniences me and how I talk to them, like, hey, it's totally fine. I totally get these things happen and all that sort of thing. If somebody talks to me that way, sometimes I'll be like, you're an Enneagram 9, aren't you? And they're like, yeah, because they're just trying to put your mind at ease. Hey, everything's fine. Everything's good. But, oh, man, I probably would have called you. And I would have been like, hey, I got to talk to you personally. I am so sorry. Oh, my gosh. But
it would have bothered you a lot more than it would have bothered me.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where you and I are, as I've gotten to know you over the last few years, that's where we have so many similarities, And I see people that I'm close to, I see a lot of you in them. And like, even you saying that helps me understand how to relate to people that I think we all just expect people to respond the way we respond.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to this is a great gift to me, because it give me some insight into why when someone that runs our company, she's like the slightest mistake. And it's because she's so system driven, right? I'm like, Jen, it's okay, but it's not for her.
Right.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing I need to work on too, is when people like I think the same thing that would get Lynne a little annoyed is it's a symptom of also why she's so good at her job. So like it's all one and the same. I've got to learn how, when I drop the ball with someone like Lynne and I can tell that it's not super like it's all good, like it's actually effectual, I got to learn how to be like, okay, she's a human being, and that's not bad for her to react that way, but I can't hold that either. I can apologize, I can take responsibility for it, but I can't carry that.
Right.
That's over and done with. And these kind of things, I think, seem commonplace and easy for a lot of people, how they're wired up. Not me, man. This is tricky stuff. It's like over time, I think I get better and better and better. So we're just going to have a good time talking through, I think, some maybe deeper stuff with mental health. It's not often that I can talk to a fellow struggler, a little bit about my past with depression and anxiety. And so also, as a pastor and someone who's thought through a lot of theology of suffering and healing and all that, what I thought where I would start with, because I wrote all these notes last night, by the way, Toby, because that's when I found out we were podcasting.
That's when he texted me like, hey, we're good for tomorrow. Yeah, I'm great.
Oh, man. So I'm going to keep things super real here. We're not a perfect church at Seacoast, and this is 20 years ago, and I dearly love this man, and most people wouldn't even know who he is. He hasn't been here in a really long time. But I think a pastor at Seacoast that I wasn't serving under, but I think personally he gave me some bad advice like I said, he's trying, just like all of us, trying to help one another out. But I remember going to him, talking to him about something, and I'll never forget his response. I was like, that doesn't sound right. But I'm super young at the time, Enneagram 9. I'm not going to push back with this guy. I'm just going to take it in and then think about it. So I remember leaving his office saying, that doesn't sound right. And that was around the time where I was like, oh, people way older than me, they're also trying to just figure things out. Like, it was a huge eye-opening. I was like, oh, okay. So we're never figuring everything out and get all the answers and all that sort of thing. But he basically told me, he said, well, Joey, a rule of thumb that I have is I don't share any struggle that I'm currently going through because I don't want it to be a stumbling block for the person that I'm pastoring. I only share struggles that God has healed me from, that I'm over and done with. And I'll just throw one example out because I want to ask you two what y'all think about that advice. But the low-hanging fruit scripture for me is, Paul literally did not say the things that I used to not want to do, I used to do them. And the things that I used to want to do, I used to not do them. He said, the things I don't want to do right now, I do. The things I don't want to do right now, so I think that was bad advice, but I also understand where he's coming from. Sunday, when you were teaching, that's one thing that really struck me is this is someone that has been given the platform to teach thousands of people on a Sunday morning. A church started by Pastor Greg in 1988. What an honor to come over here and teach. And you literally tell people you're still struggling. You know what I'm saying? So my guess is that you wouldn't think that's the greatest advice either, but I'm curious what you think.
No, I wouldn't agree with that advice. I don't think it's as cut and dried probably as guys would like to make it. I think there are some things in process that I wouldn't share if it would affect my family a little bit. You know, if I was struggling in my marriage and my wife is sitting there with 3,000 people in a room, I'm not gonna say we're not really doing that great. But overall, I think most people. Authenticity is the buzzword out there now. It's a new currency. Authenticity has power to a certain place because authenticity says, here's something that I struggled with in the past. It's vulnerability where you connect with people. And that is, here's something I am still struggling with in the moment, right? And so I think that the power of what we get to do at Goby is, and I'm a genius in the rearview mirror, looking back on it. But I think if my story was a story of, hey, I know what it's like because I used to be there, there would be a level of impact. But when I'm saying, and it is vulnerable, it isn't easy all the time, especially when people come up afterwards and want to fix me. But when I say I'm in process, now I can connect with the person who's at the same place in the process at a deeper level than I ever could have. And honestly, I think that's a place that the church has struggled, right? We've struggled, to be honest, in our in-process moments. And so there's a level of impact that we're not able to have because everybody's story is not, and then I prayed and God fixed it, and here's the bow on the end of it. That's not the journey for lots of folks.
Yeah.
I talked to 10 of them yesterday, got 50 direct messages that I read. Just tears ran down my face last night. They're in process.
Yeah.
So people come up to you after you teach and try to give you mental health advice as far as...
all the time.
Yeah. Like, are they coming to you with professional advice? I'm just curious.
No. It's usually the joke I made this weekend.
Yeah.
It's usually, hey, you need to watch this podcast from Joe Rogan or somebody. Or, hey, have you ever heard of this supplement,
Yeah.
And I have a lot of that.
Yeah.
That and casting out demons if I'm at that kind of ilk of church, they want to, pray a deliverance over me or whatever. And
man, it's not funny in some ways, but sometimes I just have to laugh. Like over the years when people they'll say something like, you just pray and ask God for strength. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been a Christian my whole life. You don't think I thought of that one?
Yeah.
You don't think I thought to say, God, will you please just take this away?
But let's think about with mental health, Lynne. when it comes to mental health, our picture of God's involvement is he fixed it. Right? That was the message forever. Pray, read your Bible, do these things, and God will fix it.
Right.
Instead of the message being God's presence and power in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Right? That to me is the message that I am desperately trying to get out. This difference between healing and freedom.
Yeah.
Right. Because I really feel like that is the only, like, there's certain promises in the Bible that you could probably go back and forth on as far as, well, he was talking to Israel there. I don't know if that applies. There's so many things you can go back and forth on. It seems like the one solid, and there's a few of them, but one of them that stands out more than anything is what you just said. God promises he'll be with us. And there's not a whole lot else that he promises other than the things that come with his presence, strength, peace. Those are the things that he promises. Hey, if you ask, man, I'll give you, like, if you give me all of your cares and concern, I will give you peace that passes all understanding. There's not a whole lot of promises in addition to that. It doesn't seem like, sometimes I don't understand why it's so unique for leaders to share from that vulnerability. It seems like, man, this is how it's supposed to be. Like, in this world, you will have trouble. You will have trouble. I mean, take heart that I've overcome the world. But we appreciate your honesty. I'll tell you that.
Here's the fear. The fear is if they know the real me, they will think less of me. Right? Think about with your kids.
Yeah.
I teach this in the parenting workshops that we do all over the country, is when I talk about recapturing the power of the dinner table and how we do this high-low question thing. And I'm sure Pastor Greg's talked about that a million times here. But I said, you have to go first as a parent because you're the leader. In the room, you can feel the tension in the room. And I go, oh, I get it. I feel this. Because you think if you tell your kid that you're struggling with something at an age-appropriate level, right?
Right.
But they're going to think less of you. And I tell them the story of my kids. And when I went on this television show and kind of became the anxiety guy, I'm asked to speak on it. Well, my kids are in the audience. They're going to know. So I was forced to tell them they were, 10 years old, 12 years old, that I'm telling them, hey man, here's what I've been diagnosed with. Here's what my struggle is. Scared to death that they were going to think Dad was weak.
Right.
Well, I'm 61. My kids are 38 and 36 or 35. They both work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't think less of me. They think more of me.
Right. Because especially they get to an age where they realize that adults don't have it all together.
Right.
And they disrespect any adult that tries to position themselves otherwise. Because they're like, we're 13 years old. We can read, but we can see what's really going on.
We give people it's a disservice. It's like emptying the cross of its power when we don't want to sit in our weakness. And so even when we're when we're hiding it or when we have to have it together, we're not showing people the power of weakness and Christ being with us. And then we're giving them a faith that doesn't have any suffering in it, and that's not, in our context, people, there are a lot of things that can be comfortable. And if you haven't experienced mental health struggles, if you don't have to experience a lot of suffering. It touches everyone, but not in the same way as it might Christians in the East or Christians in other closed countries. And so when we're not sharing the struggle that we're in, we're actually negating the fact that this is why we need Christ.
Yeah. He's the centerpiece. It's not about, and the passage about Paul's thorn, the key phrase for me is, I boast in my weaknesses so that Christ's power may I think there is for sure a tangible power thing going on that, and I don't think it's God saying, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to work through you because you don't have the belief thing right. It's a heart thing. It's until we let that really sink in, our heart's not open, to that sort of What do you guys think of this sort of approach to life? Like I actually see, as a Christian, I think through there's victory in Jesus, and we're all hunkering down and holding each other until he comes back and gets us. There's like two things going on here. Yes, victory in Jesus. He died, he rose. We know that all things will be redeemed. And, oh my gosh, this is hard. We love each other. Let's take care of each other. It's like a both and. Yeah. Like this life is marked with suffering.
Yes. And if you get to either extreme of that, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. If it's, praise the Lord, my car broke down, glory, hallelujah, that the end of, hey, I have victory in Jesus, and it becomes so centered there without a recognition of the other, it has a tendency to become a little plastic to the world, right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But then if you go to the side of, man, life is hard, and one day we're going to know about it. You go to the end of that extreme and kind of just like grovel in our imperfection and the difficulty of it, then you negate the reality of what God is going to do and is doing. And so I think you have to kind of try to hold that in balance. Sometimes there are things that are true, and me knowing that they're true is what sustains me in the difficult times, but it's not something that I'm not jumping for joy that I'm in the midst of a struggle.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of hold that in balance a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did a little blunder as a podcaster. The listeners did not hear your message Sunday. So give people a little bit of a snapshot. Honestly, people can go to our message podcast app. We have a podcast app, and they can also go to the website.
Seacoast.org.
Yeah. Say that again.
Seacoast.org.
Seacoast.org to hear Toby's message, but give people a little bit of a recap and what sort of struggle we're talking about. You can make it brief.
Yeah, my brief story is I was diagnosed with an anxiety and panic disorder 30 years ago. Yeah. In a season when nobody was talking about these issues.
Right. Mental health awareness didn't exist.
Yeah, they didn't.
We weren't talking about it.
Right, and I'd never heard depression. I'd never heard the word anxiety. I literally thought that they were going to come pick me up and take me somewhere because you're either doing good or you're crazy. Mm-hmm. And in the midst of that struggle, believing those kind of things and still believing that if I was fully known, I wouldn't be fully loved. I didn't recognize yet that you can't be fully loved unless you're fully known. I kept it to myself for 17 days, and so I finally convinced myself that the world would be better off without me, and decided to drive my truck into a bridge abutment. Last minute swerved because I had this picture of my wife telling my daughter, my little 7-year-old, that Dad wasn't coming home, and I felt like a coward. And that was the day I went and told her, my wife, here's who I am, not who you think I am. Here's my struggle. I'll never forget. I didn't say this in the message, but I'll never forget her looking at me and saying, I don't care what it is, what it was. We're going to get through this together. It was the first time I experienced unconditional love that I remembered. And which sent me on this journey where I have, again, a genius in the rearview mirror look back and go, oh, here's some things you believed. There's something wrong with God. He doesn't work the way you read in the Bible, because I hadn't read the Bible enough to know that he worked in pain and suffering, not in spite of it. Really became convinced there was something wrong with me. I had major identity issues. I didn't operate out of a value system that said I am a conqueror, which means I have to conquer things.
How heavy is that you believe that since you were struggling, that meant that God was distant? That's heavy.
Yeah, and I think, heavy. And you know how many Christians believe that?
Oh, yes, I lived it.
Yeah, it's that farther along we'll know out about it, and and I'm just a worm right now, and this is how it is, but beam me up, Scotty, one day. That whole thing, man, I was in that. Mm-hmm. And So I look back now thinking God was going to heal me, finally understanding he might heal me, but I didn't need him to heal me for him to love me or for him to be real. Experiencing that freedom that comes. Wrote a book that I didn't want to write, which led to a children's book that led to us trying to help parents and students and now grandparents understand how to help connect to God's power in the middle of it. And the reason we work, if you look at our stuff, you would go, oh, that's not for me. That's for a parent of a middle schooler, high schooler, elementary kid. No, it's because we found that people will come because it helps their kids. And then we tell them, by the way, it's for you, right? It's really for you. The kids become what they see, not what you say. And, I've been on college campuses, I've been in public schools, I've spoken at senior citizen events. I mean, the message is for everyone that God wants to set you free, but you have to change your target. And I'm going back to this because I've been working on this and I haven't ever spoken of it publicly, this commitment to mental fitness so that you may have more mental health than you would have in a state of, and I know we're going to talk about this in a moment, Joey, but of the way you're wired and your genetic predisposition is towards some of these struggles, right? So that's the story, and that's really what I talked about Sunday morning, is just to give people hope.
Yeah.
And, I go sign books. I feel weird doing that. But I do it because I want to talk to people. And I talk to young women, but the majority of people that come to me they're men. Because men do not have a picture of a man saying, I struggle with this, and for the first time they've heard it, and they want to come and say, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with pastor attached to your name. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, because it's I thought pastors don't talk about that stuff. So for some people, their world is blown up. And it's almost like a magnet. It's I got to talk to that guy.
Yeah, it offends some and it draws some.
That's so true. That's so true. All right. Well, as someone who thanks for sharing, thanks for the snapshot, and someone who has struggled with a lot of depression, anxiety, and I would say kind of how I tell people now, I feel like the depression is something in my past, whereas, there'll definitely be times where I'm I think there's some chemical stuff going, making me sad. It's not just situational, but they're pretty short-lived. And I think anxiety is something that I'll always have to try to keep an eye on and manage. So it's just been a lifelong journey. And one thing that's just so hard, and people that don't struggle with, a physiological chemical imbalance aren't aware of, but it feels like sometimes there's so many different options and so many different choices. And should I be on medication? And if so, what combination? And if I've tried it for 5 weeks and it's not making an impact, should I get off of it and go to another one, even though I know the process is going to be 3 months, I'm going to be in pain the whole time? Or should I eradicate certain food from my diet? Should I do this certain exercise? Should I, try this certain therapy? Should I find a therapist who does EMDR? There's so many things that are at our disposal. And for someone who, like yourself, who says, look, I've grown a lot in this area, I still have times where I struggle. Can you relate to that journey that I'm spelling out as far as how frustrating it is that you really don't know exactly what to do? Or at this point, have you kind of relinquished that?
Yes.
As far as options and...
Yeah, yes and no.
Yeah. The question makes sense. Sometimes I'm a little unsure whether or not I'm
what you're saying.
asking them well.
For folks who think like me, I think what he's asking is...
Thank you. This is what I'm asking everybody.
Do you battle this... What's the... searching for the magic bullet, right? What's the one thing I'm missing? Mm-hmm.
Because if there is something, I want to know.
Yeah, and so here's what I would say to you. If we were just sitting having a cup of coffee, I would say, hey, what are your essentials that will keep you as mentally healthy as possible? For me, it's everyone heard this past weekend. It's the 40 IMs. There's not a day that I don't look in the mirror and pick one of those. They're all on my phone. I rotate them. Look in the mirror. I am stronger than I feel right now. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those. If I practice, I would say, hey, are you doing that every day? Number two, are you spending some time getting some kind of physical activity in your life, walking, whatever? Just make sure that you're getting your blood moving. Let's talk about what you're eating. How much caffeine. I know that sounds weird, but like if you have anxiety, why would I drink Red Bull? My heart beats fast on its own. Right. So I have like 4 or 5 of those things. And if I'm doing those things which put me in a position to be as mentally healthy as possible, right? I'm interested in those other things when I hear about them, but I'm not chasing them, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm ever struggling, which has never happened, if I'm ever struggling deeply and I'm doing all of those essentials, then I probably would be looking more at other options. I've just never had a time that I've started to battle anxiety and feel like I'm losing a little bit, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That I can't, it doesn't say, I will stop and go, okay, the light's flashing on my check engine light of my car. What of these 5 things am I not doing? Mm-hmm. And there's never been a time that I'm doing them all and I'm losing.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Not the absence of something, Lynn. Not meaning I don't battle it. See, the win is not to not battle it. Mm-hmm. The win is to have the power to move through it where it doesn't define you, deter you, or keep you from living the life that you were called to live. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It reminds me of something my therapist has said too. It's just like when you have anxiety, it is a feeling. Like if you can take that in and be like, this is a feeling, and she'll say things to kind of help it click. She's just like seriously, Tylenol helps with inflammation. Think of anxiety, and she's like, I'll even recommend you do it sometimes.
Right.
Take Tylenol for your anxiety. It's an anti-inflammation. Like think of it as a physical deal, and go through it. It's just kind of reminded me of that. That's good stuff. Toby, were you about to ask?
Oh, I was just wondering from a perspective of, for the two of you, what does losing look like? You said if you're doing all 5 of those things, if you feel like you're losing, but you're doing all 5 of those things, you might look for something else. What is it for someone who doesn't know what it feels like? What does losing look like versus living and being sustained through something when you're not shooting for the absence of it, but you're being sustained through it? What does losing look like as a difference of being sustained?
That's a great question. For me, it is that it begins to keep me from living out my calling, right? It's like I always talk about, I can play hurt. I can play hurt. I can do what I need to do. I have done what I need to do. Struggling. There has been times that my wife has come in and laid her hand on me and prayed for God's strength for the next 30 minutes when I'm leading a funeral, a wedding, or speaking at, I remember one time at Easter, for me, losing is not being able to go and do the very best I can do in that moment with what He's given me to do. It's never going to be where I am when I'm at 100%. Yeah. But that's not the win. The win is that, hey, I did it. It didn't. That's what losing looks like to me. I spent a season of being, in the early days, non-functional. Like getting off the couch I couldn't do it. So for me, the win is being able to get up off the couch and do what I need to do. Losing is becoming a victim. Nobody understands how hard this is. If they would, they wouldn't be asking me to do this. And me finding reasons to not do what I've been called to do. Mm-hmm. That's what it is for me.
Yeah, that's good.
I think for me, it's not being able to shift gears back into the direction of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost hesitate to use this example because I'm a huge advocate of been a Christian my whole life. I think God is overseeing it all, but also think brain is tissue, and there's some very practical medical things about the brain. But I would say it feels like when Paul talks about living in the spirit as opposed to the flesh, it almost feels like for me losing is I just can't get out of that fleshly mindset. I just can't snap out of it. And I had a situation where I was so stressed and anxious, and I was like doing all the things and thinking all the thoughts and slowing down. And it's like I could not get out of it. And the only thing I could do was go to bed. And so I feel like I lost that battle, but then I knew the next morning sleep was going to recalibrate it all, and all the stuff that I was anxious and upset about, I wasn't going to be upset and anxious. So I think that's, for me, it's like, I know all the things that I could do to kind of reel this back in and get back on a more peaceful mindset, and I can't. I'm trying and I can't.
Yeah, most of our people that listen to podcasts like this because it's about mental health, I'm sure there's some of you that have tuned in because you saw it was mental health and you want to hear, like, when you panic about panicking, that's the loss, right? Like, for me, I have anxiety. It doesn't make me anxious that I have anxiety. I have occasional panic attacks. Had one about a month and a half ago. I don't panic about the panic attack. I know it's going to be over. I don't like it. I'm not to Paul's level of thank you, God, in the middle of this. It sucks. I hate it. But I know it's going to pass.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to kill me.
Ooh, man, that how you're talking is not common because panic attacks are so painful and hard. I mean, that's years
and years of practicing, really.
Right.
And one of the ways I've always coped with life in general is, okay, what's the worst case scenario? And then let's work back from that.
Yeah.
Right? Well, worst case scenario would be that, I wouldn't be able to be a husband, a dad, a grandfather at this season of my life because of panic attacks. Well, that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not going to because I've had so many. I don't like them.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate the fact that God will give me enough strength to get through it.
Yeah. I think I was heading towards a panic attack one time, and I'm telling you, if this is, and I remember talking to my therapist at the time, she said, yeah, it sounds like it, but it feels so dark. Yeah. And I would even go so far as to, again, I don't know if that's what I was heading towards, but I'll go so far as to say it felt almost like an evil heaviness, like just so heavy, and you can't do anything about it. It's like, get this away. Right. It was a weird experience, and I'm glad that's not something that went all the way and that I don't struggle with. But does that sound like that? Like, is it just so heavy and dark and just? Ugh.
I call it the black wave,
and
you feel it coming, right? You feel this wave coming, and it's so familiar, and yet it's so ugly.
Yeah, and I heard that if you're standing over like some sort of a lake where there's infested alligators and sharks and all that stuff, and if you feel anxious, the bridge you're standing on will just open up and you're going to fall right in there. Don't get anxious, because if you do, that's what's going to happen. Somebody told me that's what it's like to have a panic attack. You know there's danger, and you know that if you get anxious about that danger that you feel coming, it's just going to fuel it, and it's just going to be something that builds and builds and builds. So don't get anxious, or you're going to have a worse anxiety attack. Like, don't get anxious, or the bridge is going to open up, and you're going to fall in with those alligators and sharks. I mean,
you panic about panicking.
Yes,
that's what happens.
Ugh. Are there people? I told you I was going to ask you this before we hit record, because I'm curious about this. I have seen my mental health journey as like I took it in that I had something wrong with my mental health, like that concept registered. I don't know if it was mental health. I think it was just depression because it's hereditary. My dad talked to me about it, and I remember accepting it. I want to say my junior year of college. So it's been a journey ever since, and I'm kind of guy that I want to strive to get better and better and better. So I'd say the last 10 years has been the most growth, maybe the last 5 years, even more than that. But are there people where I think of folks who are confined to a wheelchair, and outside of a miracle, they're going to be in a wheelchair? That's just their diagnosis. They've lost, the ability to move their legs, for instance. Are there people where there's no trajectory outside of God for improvement? Their brain is a certain way, and they're just going to have panic attacks. They're just going to have a depressive vibe to them. That's how their brain is. There's no coming back from this with therapy, medication. Like, are there people like that exist? It's just that's how their brain is.
I think there's people. My opinion. I'm not a doctor. Don't play one on TV. I don't have any letters after my name. But I think there are people who, again, in their genetic makeup, right? They're gonna have to do things that other people don't have to do because they're susceptible to these things, right? And I think we can either spend our time lamenting the fact that we have to do things that other people don't have to do. If you're in this crazy club nobody wants to join with me, or I can spend my energy getting better and making sure that I'm as strong as I can be. And that's okay. I think, don't conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Paul understood neuroscience. He's talking about neural pathways before we ever were. Now, research shows you can change those pathways in your brain. So, you're not a victim because you battle anxiety or depression. I know it feels like it in the moment. I identify with that struggle. But I'm not going to take the energy that I have lamenting that this is something I struggle with. Because for me, the win is not having a struggle. The win is how I deal with the struggle. So you're not less of a person because you battle depression. You're not less than someone else because you battle anxiety. You're not less than someone else if you have some kind of letters that we use in science for all these different things. That doesn't make you less of a person. It just means you may have to do things that other people don't have to do.
Yeah.
That's a long answer, but it's the best I could give for people because, like, Joey, I'm not just talking about me. I'm talking about thousands of people that I've had conversations with over the last 3.5 years, standing in hallways and over through DMs if I can get to them. And it's like, quit labeling yourself. You are a child of the King. That's who you are, right? You were fearfully and wonderfully made. And there's science that shows that those of us who, the creative side of our brain, always get the left right mixed up, we are more susceptible to these things. I don't want to cash in the creative ability I have, so I won't be more susceptible. My brother, 18 months older than I am, grew up in the same home, same parents. He doesn't understand my mental health struggles because that's not how he got wired.
Yeah.
Right? I can spend my time wishing I was him, being mad at God that he didn't make me like him, or I can get better. I wouldn't, like, he's great with numbers. When I see numbers, it kind of, the cloud comes down. I'm not analytical, but I feel like I can create things. I know how to create things. I don't want to give that up. If it means this battle for me to be able to write things and speak things, then okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I know it's long, but I just want people to get that it's like, don't listen to all of these voices out there in the middle of everybody talking about mental health. I was country before country was cool. I was talking about this 30 years ago. But don't listen to this insidious, you're less than, you just are, just surrender. No, it's not true.
Yeah. Well,
you know why I think so many pastors that I talk to are attracted to the message that I give, it's because it's not what I say. It's that they see I'm really happy. That I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my grandkids. More of my kids, I said, I laugh, I joke. I have a good life.
Yeah.
And I think what they see is this picture of, oh, wait, you can have this and still be happy and still have a good life.
Yeah.
The lie is you'll never be happy again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And once you believe that strong enough, that's what a lot of people don't wrap their mind around. That's when, I'm talking about myself, that's when suicidal stuff comes into play. Like if you are convinced that you are never going to get better, and then you were, for me, I was in a mental health crisis, so I was about as low as you could possibly go. What are my kids supposed to do with me around?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it just gets to a point where you think you're thinking logically because you've
been there.
A plus B equals C. It's like, I'm never going to get better. Why would I stay? Sort of thing,
The backstory on that day that I got in my truck, the instigating event, was a stack of pictures back when you had to use a real camera and, get them all developed. And I was looking through a stack that was there. It's funny because it was like, from when we were wearing coats to when we had swimsuits on. I mean, because it was all the events, but I pulled one out and it was Christmas. And I looked at me and my wife and my kids smiling, and I thought I'll never enjoy Christmas again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was the start of my decision to take my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was in the mental hospital Priscilla brought, she came every day and she would bring different things. One time she brought pictures of the kids, literally looking at those pictures, thinking, I'll never be their dad again.
Right.
Those days are over. And I was convinced.
Yep.
I was 100% convinced to the point I told Priscilla, you got to tell them. What are you doing? Go tell them that those days are over. This isn't happy talk right now, is it, Toby?
No, but you know what?
But
it's real.
It's real. Yep. All right, so I'm having to pick and choose now, which means we've had some fun. I want to camp out as we wrap up on Scrupulosity because I want to blow Lynne's mind here. But so Scrupulosity, and I forgot to actually write down the definition, but it's basically a form of OCD that's very connected to spiritual fear. An example that I see often is incessant, repetitive prayer for salvation, fear of hell, fear of sinning, fear of unconfessed sin. And I would say that was a huge culprit for most of my challenges. That was kind of like a foundation of it. And I'll give two examples. So I remember working, and I was super irrational stuff, working as I was a sophomore, and I was helping my boss move his business from one location to the other. Glass shelves. There was tons of glass shelves, but I happened to be holding one random glass shell. It clipped the wall, broke a corner, and I felt so bad about it. And I was like, I need to tell my boss. Never told my boss. 3 years later, I'm still thinking about that because of the verse that says, if you know the good to do and you don't do it, you're sinning. Mm-hmm. So I thought, unless I tell my boss about that chipped glass corner, I've got unrepentant sin on my heart. So I'm on the way to hell right now. But it's also going to be very embarrassing going up to my boss and say, hey, when we were moving 3 years ago, I clipped the corner of your glass shelf. And so I'm petrified to have that conversation because it's so embarrassing. But I also am thinking, well, that sin is on my hands. So that's one thing. I mean, I dealt with that for years, thinking I'm going to go to hell for clipping the corner of a glass shelf. And then another one is the repetitive and incessant, am I saying that word right? Incessant?
Yes.
Salvation praying. I mean, we're talking, I would ask the Lord into my heart, and then I would start thinking, was I supposed to address God or Jesus? And I don't remember. Did I say Jesus or God? I got to do it again. And this time I'm going to write it down. And this time, was I thinking clearly? I just got up in the morning. Was I half asleep? I got to do it again. I'm going to put check marks next to this piece of paper that I have that says, you asked for salvation. I mean, it literally sounds crazy. And I would say, I can say this because I experienced it. I think it kind of is like OCD. It kind of, and I don't think that's a helpful word to the mental health discussion, crazy, but that's what it felt like. It felt just completely out of control. I know I asked for salvation, but I've got this thought in my head and it's compulsive. It's like, now I've got to act on it. I got to go back to that thing that I wrote down. I mean, it's nuts. Do you have any sort of experiences with this? Because I haven't heard from you if you have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Does
that sound crazy to you?
No. I mean, it sounds like when you say it's out of control.
Right.
Yeah, I can see.
Right. But crazy is not a helpful word, probably. Yeah.
No, for me, when I was walking that hall of my house for 17 days at night, trying to walk off these panic attacks, after the second day, I thought, well, there's got to be some unconfessed sin in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, God's punishing me.
Exactly, yeah.
And so when I walked the next 15 nights, every night it was trying to think of sins I might have committed that I forgot or I hadn't asked forgiveness for. That's where it got to for me. So OCD, for those of us who battle anxiety, the interesting thing about OCD is we feel out of control. And so we want to do things we can't control. I will catch myself when I'm under some stress. I will catch myself rearranging things on the kitchen counter. Why? I mean, you catch yourself doing it. Why? Because you feel out of control, so your subconscious wants to control things. Well, if you mix that tendency with a religious spirit of works-based hell and damnation,
and fear of being there forever,
then that's where you get where Joey described, where I described is, okay, I what can I control about this thing? How can I somehow appease the gods? Look, this is as old as history. Mm-hmm. I mean, whether you're sacrificing animals, I've stood in the place where they threw children into these deep waters, these waterfalls. I want to appease the gods. Somehow it's old covenant theology of you got all these sins. They have to be atoned for in a specific, detailed way. And the answer to that, I know it sounds silly, but that's why Jesus is the answer. It's because it's a new covenant. He does not treat you as your sins deserve, right? He's not punishing you because every sin that you have ever committed, past, present, and future, is paid for at the cross of Christ. It's what makes it good news for us who battle this kind of need to control out of a need to appease the God that we serve. That's the answer. And so, like, I am not a theologian, but I love theology because that's when it doesn't become words on a page, but the reality that saves me from myself in my darkest moment.
Yeah. And I'll tell the listeners, some of you heard us talk about scrupulosity and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. Because I remember when I heard about it for the first time, I was like, I thought I was the only guy that went. And then there's some of you and you are thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, that sounds just unbelievably, I've never heard of such a thing. It is common. There was an NFL player that I saw an article written about that he came forth and said he almost ended his career, and he talked about his OCD and mentioned scrupulosity specifically and talked about the religious component of it. I had a guy at another Seacoast campus hear me mention it and pulled me to the side and just had to share his story, because when you hear somebody else go through those sorts of things, it's just like, oh my gosh, I got to talk to them because I thought I was the only one. Man, this has been awesome. Very, very appreciative of your time. Again, for new listeners and maybe people that are hearing your voice for the first time, again, snapshot, and you've already done a little bit of it through the course of the conversation. Tell people what you're doing, where they can go, a little bit about old Goby.
Go back and listen to the message if you're listening here. And it's not because I preach this message that needs to be in some leather book, but you'll hear a lot of, it's really my story tied in with some biblical truth, and you'll hear me tell the story of Goby. The short version is we are committed to building tools, practical tools that people can use to connect to God's power and presence in the middle of their mental health struggles. We're basically taking what science is saying that the Bible has always said, but now, like, for instance, there is research that shows there's a connection between your level of gratitude and your mental health. But the question is, how do you become more grateful? How do you build a culture of gratitude? I have a tool that for you and your family, you can begin to do. We have about 40 of these tools. You go to Goby, BEAGOBY.com. And I know what some of you are thinking, and God bless you, it doesn't make me mad. But it's like, that stuff's simple. That won't work. Well, tell me what's working for you then, right? It's like, I don't want to do those 40 I ams. I don't want to. Well, when you say them the first thing in the morning into a mirror, when you say them the last thing at night before you go to bed, over time, guess what happens? You start changing the neural pathways in your brain. And I have always said, everything we do, guys, it's connected to the principle of 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Why? Because science shows that lasting change comes from small things done consistently over time. I'm not asking you to spend your whole day doing something. I'm asking you to start practicing these things. So that's what Be a Goby. If you go there, you'll see all of the tools. We built several courses online people can take. And when I put together a course, I put together a course the way I like courses, 7 to 10 minutes. 4 installments. I don't want you spending an hour. Take 7 or 10 minutes, work through the worksheet, and see if it helps you.
Awesome.
Hey, Joey, Lynne, we will change the conversation in the church about mental health before in this season. We will. If we'll just stay at it.
Yeah.
And just take all that comes, man. I mean, I understand the price that has to be paid. It's worth it, man, to help people find freedom.
Yeah. Amen.
So I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. We have that, I always call it the club, right? We're in the club. You care about people that are in the club, You're not an outsider. Anybody that cares and wants to not fix us, but be with us in the middle of that, we're in this thing together. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we love you. You're a part of our church, and if we'll have all the information in the show notes, and then if you're a patron, you can actually go to your patron feed and continue listening to this episode, because I got a few more questions. I want to ask you guys what y'all think about the love of money being the root of all kinds of evil, and I've been really thinking a lot about how that plays into mental health. So I want to talk about that with you guys, and then I want to just ask you, what are things that just warm your heart about the church, and what are some things that frustrate the hang out of you about the church? Thank you guys for listening. We love you guys, and we'll be with you patrons here in a second.
You've been watching Seacoast Church's Things You Won't Hear on Sunday podcast. You can now become a patron of this podcast and receive exclusive content. Your support goes towards Seacoast ministry efforts and local presence. Also, be sure to leave us a review and subscribe to this podcast so that you get these episodes as soon as they're released. All of this information can be found in the show notes. Thanks for watching.